Welcome to Beat Diabetes. Before we get to our subject at hand, I wanted to share a little bit about how YouTube works and how you can use my YouTube channel to maybe a little more advantage than you realized. One thing I want to say to start with is that sometimes I talk about leaving things in the description, and a lot of people look at the description and they say, well, there's like 3 lines. I don't see anything like what you just said, Dennis. Well, you've got to click on the word more. It used to say show more. Now these days it says more. But you got to click on more, and then it'll open up a big old section that'll have links and various things. So be sure and do that. Another thing that you should keep in mind is that if you will go to my channel, if you go to the Beat Diabetes channel, you can, if you're just on YouTube at any spot, all you have to do is type in the search engine Beat Diabetes or Beat Diabetes Dennis, and you'll get there. You'll see a round picture of moi, and you get there, and then under my picture, there's kind of a menu list. And the second item on the menu says videos. If you will click on the word videos, you'll see all the videos that have been uploaded and are available to view. So that'll give you the whole list, but there's hundreds of them. I think we're over 600 these days. But there is another way you can find things on my channel. And a lot of people will ask very simple things like, did you do a video on chaffles? If so, where is it? Well, if you go to the videos section, you will see another menu list, and at the end you'll see a little icon for a magnifying glass, and there's a box there. And if you will type in the box whatever you're interested in, guess what? It will show you a list. Now, sometimes they get kind of crazy with that list, and if you go down 5 or 6 videos, they may not really have much to do with what you searched for, but usually the first 2 or 3 videos are exactly what you've been looking for. So, for example, if you say, well, I want to know how you tell us to make a chaffle, or how you make chaffles yourself, type in the word chaffle or chaffles, and you'll get a list, and you'll find the first probably 2 or 3 videos are all about that. Or if you say, well, I want to know how Dennis makes his low-carb pancakes, type in pancakes. And oatmeal, you say, well, is oatmeal any good for me? Type in oatmeal. Because I've got so many videos, there's not going to be too many subjects where you won't be able to find some things related. So use that little magnifying glass to your advantage. And one thing you can do that'll really bless you, I think, is if you will type in the word interviews by that magnifying glass, you'll find all kinds of interviews with people that I've done. Even if you never watched any of my instructional videos, if you watch some of those interviews, you'd almost have to be dead not to get inspired. I mean, they are inspiring and exciting. And most of all, they give you hope, because you say to yourself, well, these are just ordinary people. These are not polished actors. They're just ordinary folks like I am. Exactly. And they will give you hope that what they have seen in their lives, the victories they've seen over diabetes, you can see it as well. So make use of that tiny little magnifying glass. When you go to the Beat Diabetes channel page, or you go to the videos page, either one, you'll see a little magnifying glass. And that's not just true for me. That's true for most YouTube channels. They'll have that little magnifying glass. And what that means is it's not going to search all over YouTube. It's just going to search the particular channel you're on. So when you go to Beat Diabetes and you look at the channel next to that menu bar under my picture, again, it will not tell you all the videos related to pancakes, for example. It'll just look at Dennis Pollock's videos, and it'll give you the ones related to my channel. So make use of that. All right, well, I think it was last Friday that I did a video about how keto could be dangerous. And the point I was making was that if you're taking diabetic meds or high-powered insulin, you could get a hypoglycemic episode, and some of those can really be serious. I've had them myself. Not because I was taking meds or insulin, but because I was just getting natural hypo. So anyway, I did a video about that and got a lot of responses, and I just wanted to share a few on today's program, responses to last Friday's program. So here's a lady who says, I started on low-carb eating while on several diabetes meds. Now, part of this has to do with how much your body is used to a low-carb diet. But she was on a lot of meds, so chances are She wasn't doing low carb at all, and suddenly she's going low carb. And chances are this is not gradual for her. She says, luckily, I could check with my doctor through an online app when I started experiencing weakness and fatigue from low blood sugar after a couple of weeks. Some people, it won't take a couple of weeks. You'll start having all that in a few days. She says, I remember being at an event and suddenly I was getting shaky and went into a cold sweat. Boy, if that's not hypoglycemia, I don't know what is. She says, I had to find a place to sit and chew on several glucose tablets to help me get out of the spiral. Well, she was smart to have those glucose tablets, and a lot of people don't. I've never had one in my life. I mean, I can go to a store and drink a soda, but I've never had a glucose tablet. But if you're taking diabetes meds or insulin, that's a good thing to have, and especially insulin, but even the meds. She says, later when I contacted my doctor, she immediately took me off the med that was causing the low blood sugar. I'm still taking metformin, but at half the dosage. Blood pressure med has also been reduced by half. So she found out you can't keep taking those meds at the same level, and there's a pretty good chance you may not be able to take any of them after a while. Your doctor will let you know about that. But that's good news. Why in the world would you want to take meds all your life? Not only is it expensive, but they have side effects. Did you ever, and I know you have, seen these commercials for various medicines, medications, diabetes and otherwise? And they will list side effect after side effect after side effect after side effect, possible side effects. By the time they get done going down that laundry list of possible side effects, you're like, who in the world would ever take that? And often they will include death as one of the side effects. That's a pretty severe side effect, I'd say. So if you can get off, and it's not to say that meds can do you some good, they can, but if you can get off of them, why not? So work with your doctor on that. And chances are, if you go low carb, you'll get off some meds. Now, here's another side of the coin that I didn't mention last week, but this guy brings it up. A man who follows our channel pretty closely. He says, Dennis, the same holds true for blood pressure meds. So not only blood sugar meds, diabetes meds, but blood pressure meds. He says, on a low-carb diet, the blood pressure drops as insulin levels normalize. And if you're on medication for high blood pressure, it can go too low. I experienced a significant drop in my pressure, and I only caught it on time because I was regularly monitoring my blood pressure. I went off the BP meds within just a few weeks of starting my diet, which resulted in normalizing blood sugars to an A1C of 5.2 and a 100-pound weight loss. So, yeah, you can get in some pretty big trouble with blood pressure that drops too low as well as blood sugar. So when you're changing your diet to a low carb from a junk diet, a high carb, high sugar, high monstrous food diet, processed food diet, you cannot stay with those same meds at the dosage. That's why you work with your doctor, and that's why you test, and double test yourself frequently until you find out what's going on. Now, it's a nice thing to know that you don't have to do this forever. You'll adjust, your body will adjust, and everything will calm down. You'll figure out how many meds I need to drop, or maybe all of them, as you work with your doctor. But and so after a while, you don't have to sweat it. But boy, in those first weeks and maybe a couple of months, you got to keep track of things. Here's a man. I think he's a man. He says, could be a woman, but anyway, an individual who says, I've been a diabetic for 30 years on both long-acting and short-acting insulin for the last 5 years, until I started the Virta Keto program offered through my employer. And Virta has an excellent reputation. They approach diabetes the low-carb way. He says, it's almost been a year on keto. The Virta program has a physician and a coach that monitor my glucose and adjust my insulin as my biomarkers have improved. I started in March 23. I cut the carbs to less than 30 grams a day, cold turkey. My Virta doctor halved my long-acting insulin, and I totally stopped the short-acting insulin. As of today, I went from 120 units of long-acting insulin and 12 units of fast-acting insulin with my meals, and an A1C of 9.1 to an A1C of 6.5, 30 units of long-acting insulin, and 122 pounds lost. It was not difficult. I had no keto flu. The Verta program is pretty easy to follow. It has saved my life. So he's doing excellent, and he had a doctor monitoring him, which is the very best way. And Verta is an excellent program. So if you can get into it, I don't know what the cost is. I expect if you don't have insurance that can cover it, it's probably pretty expensive, but I don't know that. Every kind of medicine and program that you can get into these days is expensive. But if you can, if you've either got the money or you've got the insurance, that would be a great program to use. It's not that I know so much about it, but I know who's involved with it and who started it. They're highly qualified people that strongly believe in the low-carb diet. Here's an individual, I believe it was a lady, who says, when I first cut carbs, I noticed the weakness. She says, I added some electrolytes and salt, and after a few days, all the side effects went away. And I've heard that more than just this time, the idea of electrolytes helping when you go low carb and you have this weakness and fatigue. She says, I think I lost about 10 pounds in water weight. It caused my electrolytes to be off. All is well now, never going back to junk carbs again. All is well now, not going back. But yeah, when you first go low carb, you're likely to feel something. Now, can I tell you my story? I never did. I never had the keto flu. I never really had anything. I was feeling weak beforehand. But I think one of the reasons I never experienced what so many do is I did it relatively gradually, not because I was smart enough to know I should do it gradually. I was just learning glucose test by test, one test after another, and I'm like, okay, it looked like bananas don't work. I'm going to give up bananas, and after another month, I figure out something else to give up, and then I learn about low-carb pancakes, and it was just a very gradual process because I was so ignorant. I just didn't hardly know what to do, whereas some of you get the info, and you know immediately what to do, and so you're like, all right, boom, 20 carbs or less per day, 20 grams of carbs or less per day. And sometimes you really get some of those symptoms in the hypoglycemia and the keto flu and all kinds of things. I didn't do it that way, and it was a gradual descending from the high carbs to a relatively low carb diet. So there's an advantage to that, which is I didn't get the keto flu, but really the disadvantage is you stay at those upper levels where you're damaging your body until you finally get it down. And I did have some UTIs after I was what I thought was low carb, but I wasn't low enough carb. And I had 1 or 2 frozen shoulders after I was doing what I thought was low carb, but it wasn't low enough carb. So sometimes when you're still getting things, you're saying, well, all the keto folks are saying I shouldn't be getting this. Well, you may be low carb, 100 grams of carbs per day, 120, and you may be much lower, maybe cut in half from what you used to be, but you may not still be low enough. So yeah, there is a transition factor. And gradual is sometimes better, but if you know what you're doing, you're working with a good doctor, you should be okay. I like the Verta guy or lady who worked with a Verta doctor who was able to monitor where they were going with their biomarkers, their blood sugar, their blood pressure, and adjust their medicines and everything accordingly. And it worked. The question that so many people have about us is how in the world did you guys get to know each other? How did you get together? Well, the answer is found in Benedicta's new autobiography, When Destiny Calls. In fact, we do something in that autobiography that is almost never done. We each have a chapter sharing from our own perspective how we got together and how we first got to know each other. So she tells her side of it, I tell my side of it, and then it goes on with the rest of her autobiography. And the whole autobiography is exciting. It's a lot of drama and a lot of good stuff. But I think you'll find it interesting to know how it was that God brought us together. So there'll be a link in the description about how you can get this book on Amazon, either as an ebook or a paperback.